$760,000. That's the median price of a home inside Bozeman city limits right now. And the property tax bill on that house is lower than what you'd pay on the same house in Texas. Montana has no statewide sales tax at all. The top state income tax rate is 5.65%, while California's top rate is more than double that. So one of the most expensive housing markets in the Rockies sits inside a tax setup most states can't touch, and that changes the whole cost of living math. Here's what it costs to live in Bozeman, Montana: housing, taxes, utilities, and the week-to-week stuff. And at the end, the one cost that never lands in a cost of living calculator, which is the one that decides whether people actually stay. In Montana, taxes are where the biggest surprise lives, and they're the first thing coastal movers feel when they get here. Let's start with what that missing sales tax is worth to you. The price on the tag is the price you pay at the register. Groceries, clothes, a new truck, all of it. If you're coming from Los Angeles or Seattle, you've been paying 9 to 10% on top of most purchases. On $50,000 a year of taxable spending, that's $4,000 to $5,000 staying in your pocket every year. Income tax works the same way in your favor. Montana has two brackets. Most income gets taxed at 4.7%, and the top rate is 5.65%. Compare that to California at 13.3%, or New York at 10.9%. And is that rate holding, or is it going to go up? Well, it's actually dropping. The next cut is already signed into law, taking the top rate to 5.4% while widening that lower bracket too. For a lot of two-income households, most of what you earn never touches the top bracket at all. Which brings up the one everybody braces for. What do property taxes look like at these home values? You'd expect a painful bill. The rate here sits below the national average, with a lower homestead rate on primary residences on top of that too. On a $700,000 home in Gallatin County, you're looking at roughly $6,000 to $7,000 a year. Down in Texas, where the rates run close to double ours, that same house costs you somewhere around $10,000 to $12,000. So when you put all of that together, the taxes more than offset what you're paying for housing, and most people never actually sit down to calculate it. Real quick, before we get to the housing numbers, if you're researching a move to the area, please subscribe, because I put out real answers about moving and living to Bozeman every single week. So taxes are the good news, but let's talk about the number that makes people nervous. Housing is what decides whether this move works on paper. Over the last several months, the median single home inside Bozeman city limits has been landing between roughly $740,000 and $790,000. What happens when you look past Bozeman city limits? The numbers drop fast. Belgrade sits 15 minutes down the road, and the median there has been running right around $590,000 to $600,000. That's $150,000 to $200,000 less than in Bozeman. Condos and townhomes across the county have been landing in the high 400s to just over $500,000, and that's the most common entry point into this market. So is housing a deal breaker? For a lot of people, yes. And I'd rather be honest about it than dance around it. Housing here runs somewhere around 50% above the national average, and it's the single biggest driver of our cost of living. But when you line these numbers up against California or Washington, the valley starts to look reasonable. If you want a full area by area breakdown, I publish a market update every single month with all of this, and I'll drop a link below. But what if you're not ready to buy at all? Plan on roughly $2,000 to $2,500 a month for a 2-bedroom home. Plenty of my clients rent for a year or more before they buy, and it's a smart way to find out which part of this valley really fits your life. So for one of the biggest bills on the list, let's get to the one that runs a lot cheaper than people expect. Utilities. Bozeman runs somewhere between 7 and 16% below the national average on utilities, and that catches people off guard in a place with real winters. The reason is natural gas. Heating with gas costs far less than heating with electricity in a cold climate, and Northwestern Energy supplies both here. On a real bill for a mid-size home, expect roughly $100 to $150 a month in the mild months, and between $200 and $300 in the deep of January and February. Internet, trash, city water and sewer, those together add up around $140 a month. One question I get all summer long though, do homes here have air conditioning? A lot of older ones don't. Days get warm, but then it cools right off at night. So most people manage fine with the windows open. If air conditioning matters to you, I would take a look at newer construction. Housing, taxes, utilities, that's the stuff you can research from anywhere. The harder part to see from the outside is what daily life actually costs once you're here. And this is where we get close to what I promised you at the start. Gas at the pump has been sitting near the national average, sometimes a little under it. But could you get by without a car here? Probably not. Public transit is limited, so plan on a reliable vehicle, and all-wheel or four-wheel drive will earn its keep the first real storm you see. Commutes stay short though. 15 to 20 minutes gets you across most of the valley, whether you're headed to MSU, Bozeman Health, or your desk at home. Dining out has gotten more expensive. A nice dinner for two starts around $80 before tip. A pint of beer, $6 or $7, and a latte is $6 to start. Services trend the same way too. Haircuts, gym memberships, vet visits, entertainment, most of it lands 15 to 40% above national averages. That's the part of the budget you feel week to week rather than just once a month. So by everything we can measure, living in Bozeman lands around 20 to 30% above the national average. Here's the one I promised you at the start though, and it's where the whole equation turns around. When I lived in Southern California, I needed to develop a price tag and a budget for all of my weekends. Entertainment, travel to get out of the city, and things you buy to make up for the life you're just not living. But here, most of what fills a great weekend is free or pretty close to it. Trails start at the edge of town. A resident fishing license is about $30 a year for some of the best water in the country. Bridger Bowl is just 16 miles from downtown, community owned, and a season pass runs $950 at an early rate. Music on Main is free all summer long, and the Christmas stroll shuts down Main Street in December, and you'll see half of the town showing up for both. None of that appears in a cost of living index, but it's real money. If your budget somewhere else includes paying to escape your daily life, a lot of that spending goes away here because the place you'd be escaping to is right out your front door. That's the lifestyle side of the wealth equation, and it deserves a line in your math right next to your mortgage. So Bozeman costs more than the average American city, and housing is the big reason. Taxes and utilities push hard in your favor, but you'll pay a premium on dining and services, and the life that comes bundled with the address is what makes the people who move here actually stay. So if you're coming from a coastal market, the equity sitting in your current home is the biggest lever you have in this move, and timing decides how much of it makes the trip with you. The most expensive version of this decision is usually the one where you research for another 3 years while prices continue to climb. So waiting has a price too, even if it doesn't seem like it. I'm Chase Highland, a real estate advisor and broker here in Bozeman. I ran these numbers myself before I made the full commitment to Bozeman in the Gallatin Valley back in 2016. And now my clients run these same numbers who want a home that builds real money and a life that's worth what it costs. And that's why I built the Montana Move Method. So if a move here is on your radar, even a few years away, that's a conversation I'm glad to have. I put together a free relocation guide that helps with this exact situation. You can find that in the description along with a link to book a call if you want to talk through what this really looks like. And if you're just listening, look up Live in Bozeman because I have all this on my website too. So before you go, tell me in the comments, where would you be moving from? And which of these numbers surprised you the most? If you're looking at all of this wondering whether this trade is worth it, I made a whole video answering exactly that question. 10 reasons to move to Bozeman, including the one it took me 2 years here to understand. It's linked right here. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.